Title: I'm a yacht delivery skipper. I found a dead zone in the Pacific, and I'm never going back to sea. I'm writing this from a motel room in Papeete, Tahiti. I've been here for 3 weeks. My visa's expiring, and the owner of the boat is threatening legal action because I abandoned his vessel, but I don't care. I'm not stepping foot on a deck again. I haven't slept more than 2 hours at a time since they pulled me out of the water. If you sail long enough, you hear the stories. Rogue waves, shipping containers floating just below the surface that rip hulls open like tin cans, whales that ram boats. But nobody talks about the silence. Nobody talks about the spots on the map that the satellites don't watch closely enough. I need to get this down while the memory is still sharp, before the whiskey dulls the edges too much. Or maybe I need to get it down so I can forget. Here is what happened to the Aeolus. The job. I've been a delivery skipper for 15 years. Rich guys buy boats in San Diego or Panama and want them sailed to the South Pacific for their vacation season, but they don't want to do the 3-week slog across the open ocean themselves. That's where I come in. I sail the boat. They fly in with their cocktails when it's docked. The Aeolus was a beauty, a 52-foot Hallberg Rassy ketch, built for blue water cruising, solid fiberglass, oversized rigging, state-of-the-art electronics. An owner, a tech VC named Miller, wanted it moved from Cabo San Lucas to Tahiti. I needed a crewmate. Solo sailing that distance is possible, but dangerous and exhausting. I hired a kid named Elias. I say kid, but he was 26. He had good references, had done the Pacific Cup twice, and seemed eager. He was a bit of a gearhead, obsessed with the tech specs of the boat, which was fine by me. I'm old school. I trust paper charts and a sextant. He trusted the screens. We made a balanced team. We left Cabo on a Tuesday under perfect conditions. 15 knots of wind from the northwest, following seas. The first week was the kind of sailing you dream about. The boat hummed. Elias and I got into a rhythm. Watch schedules were 4 hours on, 4 hours off. We ate freeze-dried meals, drank instant coffee, and watched the sunsets bleed into the water. It wasn't until day 11 that things went wrong. The dead zone. We were roughly 1,200 nautical miles from the nearest land. The emptiness out there is hard to explain to someone who hasn't seen it. It's not just flat, it's heavy. The horizon is a perfect 360-degree prison line. The wind died around 4 hours. That's not unusual near the equator. The doldrums, the ITCZ, are famous for it. But this was instant. Usually the wind tapers off. This felt like someone had flipped the switch. The sails went from taut to slatting violently against the rigging, loud cracks echoing in the dark. I started the engine. "Drop the main," I yelled to Elias. We furled the sails and motored. The plan was to power through until we found the trade winds again. But an hour later, the engine RPMs dropped. It sputtered, coughed, and died. "Filters?" Elias asked, wiping grease from his hands. "Check 'em," I said. He went below. I stayed in the cockpit, steering a boat that was barely moving. The silence was absolute. Usually there's the sound of water lapping against the hull, the wind in the wires, the creak of the boom. There was nothing. The water was glass, not a ripple. It looked like black oil. Elias popped his head up. "Filters are clean, impeller's fine. It just won't turn over. It's like the battery's dead, but the house bank is showing 100%. "Try the sat phone," I said. "Let's download a weather grid file." Elias went to the nav station. A minute later, he called out, his voice tight. No signal. "We have an Iridium Go, Elias. It works everywhere." "It says no network. And the GPS. Cap, come look at this." I went down below. The Raymarine chart plotter, a screen that usually shows our position with pinpoint accuracy, was black.
Not off, just displaying a black screen. "Reboot it," I said. I did, 3 times. I looked at the backup handheld GPS. It was searching for satellites. It just kept blinking, searching. "Magnetic compass?" I asked. We went back on deck to the binnacle. The compass, usually a floating ball in liquid, was spinning, slowly, lazily, clockwise, round and round. We were dead in the water. No engine, no electronics, no GPS, and the compass was useless. "We're fine," I lied. "We have water, we have food, the wind'll pick up."
Day 13. The mirror. 2 days of drifting. We hadn't moved. I threw a wood chip off the bow on the first morning. By sunset, it was still floating right next to the hull. The ocean had changed. It wasn't just calm, it was viscous. The water looked thick. When I scooped a bucket to flush the head, the water didn't splash. It poured like syrup. It smelled wrong, too, not the clean, salty smell of the Pacific. It smelled metallic, like ozone and copper. Elias was handling it poorly. He spent hours staring at the depth sounder. Even though the rest of the electronics were fried, the depth sounder, which bounces a sonar ping off the bottom, had flickered to life. We were over the abyssal plain. The water should have been 15,000 feet deep. The sounder should have read ... because it can't read that deep. Instead, it read 400 feet. "It's a glitch," I said, eating my ration of crackers. "It changed to 390 an hour ago," Elias whispered. He hadn't shaved and his eyes were rimmed with red. "Cap, we're over a seamount. We could anchor." "There is no seamount here," I snapped. I showed him the paper chart. "Look, we're in the middle of the basin, nothing but deep water for 1,000 miles. "The chart is wrong," he muttered. That night, the fog rolled in. It wasn't normal fog. It was a low-hanging greenish mist that hovered about 10 feet off the water. It dampened sound even further. If I tapped my wedding ring against the stainless steel wheel, the sound died instantly, swallowed by the air. I took the 0 to 400 watch. Elias was sleeping below. Around 2 o'clock, I heard the splash. It was distinct, heavy, like a diver entering the water perfectly. "Elias?" I called out, heart hammering. I thought he'd fallen overboard. I scrambled to the lifeline and shone my flashlight into the black, oily water. Nothing. "Elias!" I screamed. "I'm here." I spun around. Elias was standing in the companionway hatch. He was asleep. His eyes were open, but they were unseeing, pupils dilated to the rim. "Did you hear that?" I asked. "They are knocking," he said. His voice was flat, monotone. "Who?" "The crew of the Iron Duke." I froze. I'm a history buff. The Iron Duke was a steamer that vanished in the 1920s. "Elias, wake up," I said, grabbing his shoulder. He blinked, and the soul seemed to rush back into his body. He gasped, pulling away from me. "What? What happened? Why are we on deck?" "I said you were sleepwalking." He looked at the water. He looked terrified. "Cap, I had a dream. I dreamt the bottom was rising up to meet us." I looked at the depth sounder in the cockpit. 250 feet. Day 15. The bioluminescence. The heat became unbearable. The sun beat down through the haze, but it didn't burn off the fog. The air temperature was hovering around 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and the humidity was 100%. Everything was damp. The sheets, our clothes, the wood. Mold started growing on the leather cushions in the salon within hours. We were rotting. Elias stopped eating. He spent his entire time watching the water. "It's not right," he kept saying. "Look at the wake." "We don't have a wake, Elias. We aren't moving." "No, look." I looked. Deep down, maybe 50 feet, there were lights. Bioluminescence is common. Green sparkles in the wake, dolphins leaving trails of fire. This was different. These were geometric shapes, perfect squares and triangles of violet light pulsing in a slow rhythm. Thrum, thrum, thrum.
I could feel a vibration in my teeth, a low-frequency sound on the edge of hearing. "They're scanning us," Elias said. He was smiling now, a frantic, wide smile. "Get below," I ordered. "No, watch." Elias grabbed a wrench from the cockpit locker. Before I could stop him, he leaned over the side and banged the wrench against the hull. Clang, clang, clang. The violet lights beneath us stopped pulsing. Then all of them turned red. The water around the boat began to boil, not with heat, but with bubbles. Massive bubbles of gas were rising from the depths, bursting around the hull. The smell of rotten eggs, sulfur, was overpowering. "Start the engine!" Elias screamed, suddenly panicked again. "Start it!" I keyed the ignition. To my shock, the engine roared to life. The vibration felt like salvation. I slammed the throttle forward. The prop bit into the water. I watched the GPS. It flickered on. Speed, 6.5 knots. "We're moving!" I yelled. "Get the compass course!" Elias didn't answer. He was staring at the stern. "Cap," he croaked, "we're doing 6 knots, but we're not leaving it behind." I looked back. The patch of boiling red-lit water was moving with us. It was matching our speed perfectly, and it was getting bigger. And then the depth sounder alarm began to scream. Depth, 50 feet, 40 feet, 30 feet. "Hard to port," Elias yelled. I spun the wheel. The boat heeled over. We hit something. It wasn't rock. It wasn't a reef. It felt soft. The boat shuddered, coming to a dead halt from 6 knots. I was thrown forward into the binnacle, cracking a rib. The engine stalled. Silence returned. We weren't floating anymore. The boat was resting on something. I grabbed the heavy-duty flashlight and shined it over the side. We weren't on land. We were resting on a mass of meat. Gray, fibrous, pulsating matter that stretched out in every direction as far as the beam could reach. It looked like brain tissue, magnified 1,000 times. It was wet and glistening, and it was breathing. The entire island we had run aground on was rising and falling.
"Oh, God," Elias whispered. "Oh, God. Oh, God. Get the flare gun," I said. My voice sounded like a stranger's. "And the life raft. We can't use the raft, Cap. There's no water to put it in." He was right. We were beached on a living organism in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Then the absorption began. I heard the fiberglass cracking. I looked down at the deck. The gray matter was oozing up through the scuppers, over the rail. It was acidic. Where it touched the gel coat, the boat fizzed and melted. It was digesting the Aeolus. "We have to climb the mast," I said. "Get up the rig." We scrambled up the mast steps. I made it to the first spreader, 20 feet up. Elias was right behind me. Below us, the boat was being consumed. The gray slush poured into the cockpit, dissolving the teak, the wheel, the winches. It moved fast. In 10 minutes, the deck was gone. The hull was buckling. "What is it?" Elias was sobbing. "What is it?" Then the voice came. It didn't come from the air. It came from inside my skull. It sounded like 1,000 voices speaking at once, overlapping, distorted. "We are the collective. Biological matter detected. Integration imminent." "Get out of my head!" Elias screamed. He was holding his ears, swaying on the thin metal spreader steps. "Elias, hold on!" I grabbed his harness. "Do not resist. The memory must be preserved." The mast gave a groan. The base of the mast, down in the keel, was being dissolved. The whole rig shifted. "Cap?" Elias looked at me. His eyes were clear again, sad. "I can hear them singing. Don't listen. It's beautiful. They have everyone down there. Sailors, pilots, whales. They're all part of it. Elias, don't you do it." "I have to see." He unclipped his safety tether. "No!" I lunged for him, but the sudden movement rocked the dying boat. Elias stepped off the spreader. He didn't scream. He fell 20 feet down into the writhing gray mass that had consumed the cockpit. He didn't splash. The matter just opened. It accepted him.
I watched as his face remained on the surface for a second. He wasn't in pain. He looked peaceful. And then his skin began to turn gray. His eyes dissolved. His mouth opened, and the gray sludge poured in. In seconds, he was gone. He was part of the floor. I was alone, perched on an aluminum pole sticking out of a monster the size of a city. The voices got louder. Integration 50% complete. Acceptance required. I pulled my knife. "Come and get me, you fuckers!" I screamed at the dark. I climbed higher, to the very top of the masthead. I strapped myself in so tight my legs went numb. I had the EPIRB in my pocket. I activated it. I knew it probably wouldn't work. The satellites were blind here. I waited to die. I watched the boat disappear. First the hull, then the boom. The gray sludge crept up the mast. I could hear the aluminum sizzling. 30 feet left. 20 feet left. I closed my eyes. I thought about my wife. I thought about the smell of rain on pavement. I tried to fill my mind with anything other than the static buzzing in my brain, telling me to join, join, join. And then light. Blinding white light. I thought it was the end. I thought I was dead. Then I heard the horn, a foghorn, deep, mechanical, and loud enough to rattle my bones. I opened my eyes. Through the mist, a wall of steel was cutting through the water, a container ship, massive, a Maersk Sentosa. It was plowing through the gray matter. The ship was so huge, its momentum was tearing the biological island apart. I saw chunks of the gray flesh flying into the air as the bow wave hit it. The monster screamed, a sound that shattered the glass in my watch face. The wake of the ship created a tsunami of water that washed over the gray sludge. The salt water seemed to burn it. It recoiled. The mast of the Aeolus, now unmoored and dissolving, toppled over. I hit the water, real water, cold, salty water. I swam toward the lights of the ship. I swallowed mouthfuls of brine. I kicked until my muscles seized. They saw my strobe light. It took them an hour to turn that behemoth around, but they did. The aftermath. The crew of the Maersk Sentosa fished me out. They said I was delirious. They said I was screaming about the meat and the integration. They found no trace of the Aeolus, no trace of Elias. Here is the official report. Vessel lost due to catastrophic hull failure. One crew member lost at sea. Survivor suffered dehydration and acute psychological trauma. They think I killed him, or that we took drugs, or that I'm just crazy, but I know what I saw. Yesterday, I went to the beach here in Tahiti. I just wanted to look at the horizon. I stood in the surf, the water washed over my feet, and for a second, just a second, the foam didn't look like foam. It looked gray, it looked fibrous, and I heard a voice, faint like a whisper under the roar of the waves. It was Elias's voice. "It's lonely without you, Cap. We are still hungry." I'm flying back to the Midwest tomorrow. I'm moving to Nebraska. I am never getting near a body of water larger than a bathtub again. If you sail the Pacific, stay on the shipping lanes. Don't go looking for solitude. Because in the empty places, the ocean isn't just water. It's alive, and it's waiting for you to stop moving. Update. I'm at the airport. I have a layover in LAX. I just went to the bathroom to wash my face, and when I looked in the mirror, my left eye, the iris is changing. The blue is gone. There are little violet geometric shapes pulsing in my pupil. And the tap water, it's starting to smell like copper. I don't think I escaped. I think I just became a carrier. End log.